Welcome back to another episode of Pushing Back Chaos with me, Melon, also known as Paul, mainly as Melon around these parts. I hope you guys are all well. I hope you've had a great week. I hope you've been getting after it and having some great conversations with your network, your family, your friends, the people in your life. And, we really hope that we're facilitating some of these conversations. You guys can pick up some of these points and take them and apply them in your own lives. Mike, how are you, mate? Always good to check in. What's been going on for you?
Hey, brother, what's going on, man? You only mentioned two names. I have another one for you, but I'm not going to say it. So let's not forget that one.
Is this the cheerleaders of the University of Northern Territory?
That is correct, sir. Yes. But
it's
different. It's different.
The ears of the people in North America, they're not used to these words that we use in south of the equator. Sometimes it comes up in conversation, always with a bit of love. It's
that's right.
Yeah.
Yes. Keep an eye out. I'll just say that word may be in your near future. That's all I'm going to tell you. And it's not going to be for me. I'll leave it there. Past that, we want to give a big shout out to Cheza 50 Cent, Melon's wife. It was her birthday yesterday. And I just want to give my big sister a big shout out and happy birthday, and we love you.
Yeah, happy birthday, bud. She had a great. We've had a great week. It's been really nice. We had a bit of a party weekend last weekend when Auntie Louie, her big sister, this is Dalla's wife, Louie, because she's literally 6 foot, blonde, Amazon sportswoman. And Cheza is not 6 foot, shall we just say? And the two of them together, it's like an Arnold Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito. I think Cherry would kill me for being compared to Danny DeVito. But height wise, it's like that. It looks like Louisa could pick her up and put her in her handbag, walk around with like a chihuahua, like Paris Hilton or something. She really turned it on with some of their other girlfriends, and we had a band and music and all sorts of stuff and beautiful cake. And then over the weekend just passed, we had a great fun night over our friend Oratio's place, barbecue at his house, always fun. And we watched the opening games of the Rugby World Cup. So there's a World Cup for rugby, which is on at the moment in France. And we got to watch the French, who were the hosts in the opening game, crush, really, the All Blacks, the New Zealand team. So I was stoked. And it was a good night. And then got up yesterday and on her birthday day, we went for an hour spin class, and they played nothing but Wham and George Michael for her in the spin class, which she loves because she loves anything to do with the 80s. And yeah, it's been a wonderful birthday celebration over in these parts. And she certainly loves getting a shout out from her big little brother, Mike.
Well, I try to be a big little brother the best I can, so.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, other than that, man, I mean, I was glad to hear that. I had a pretty rough week, and you may not hear it in my voice because, honestly, there's a lot of reason to that. But yeah, I've spoken about some physical things I'm going through. I had to get jaw surgery the other day. So if I sound a little weird, I don't think so. I think I'm healing all right. But I had to get surgery. I had to drive all the way to North Carolina. The medical system in the military is just awesome. So they weren't going to be able to see me for at least another month, which was great. So I have some good friends and some good circles, and they were able to hook me up and get me in early. And I got this jaw surgery and a bone graft done and all this other stuff. So I kind of look like a chipmunk on the right side of my face, which is fine. It's healing, and I'm grateful for those people. I'm a 1 week out from my knee. I still don't know what's wrong with it until I get an MRI. And it's been tough, like just to kind of walk and do some basic things it's kind of tough, man. So here I am, like walking with a limp. I can't eat right, out of the left side. I'm just falling apart. My guys left without me yesterday. They flew away for a few weeks of training without me. And I sat at the airport with them yesterday for 2 hours, just talking to them and wanting to be with them. And there's no other place I'd rather kind of be right now. And that's tough. I should be there. I'm their leader. They're my guys. So that really sucks. But I'm in good spirits, and there's a reason for it. Whenever we're kind of in these moments where we have every right to just be a piece of shit and be miserable and angry and point the finger and be like, this isn't fair, and it's this person's fault, and why is this happening to me? There's a lot of things that we can do to pull ourselves back and realize things aren't as bad as they seem. I know I have every right to be miserable and pissed off and just, I'm not a good person right now. But in the last, I don't know, couple of days, man, I've been praying. I've been reading some good stuff. Some great people have had conversations with me, and honestly, I just feel like God's been speaking to me in some ways. And I woke up today, took a nice shower, got dressed up. I went to church, met some nice people, heard a good message, reflected. I'm reading a book, that Purpose-Driven Life, and I'm okay. Everything's okay. This is all just part of life and experiencing it. And no matter what happens, man, I just have this feeling like everything's going to be okay. And I want to contribute that feeling to, I know who I am and what I stand for, what I believe, how I perceive things, and the people around me are the same way. The challenge with this is, and this is our topic today, is I don't think I'm part of the majority. And sometimes the majority isn't always right. That's such a challenge. I've been reading about this in that book. It was part of the message today. And then Melon and I were just kind of talking about this before we hit the record button, is how hard is it sometimes to wake up and you're just trying to be yourself and what you believe in, but the majority, and the majority being maybe your whole friend circle, your family, social media, especially, the news, the government, like whatever it is, and you just feel like you're just being beat down for no reason because you don't just flow right into the majority, right? Man, how tough is that, Melon?
We're talking here about times when there's like a consensus view, or there's a group of people who have got a certain belief or a way of acting, and you don't find yourself on that side of the fence. And it's always a very challenging situation to be in. I mean, you know it from school, from like when you're a kid. There's nothing more uncomfortable than when you feel like you're the odd one out. Like, we are creatures who look around us for guidance on how to behave in certain situations. What's everyone else doing now? How are they reacting? A little kid falls over and sort of scrapes their knee, and they don't know whether they should cry. They look at their mum, and if mum reacts with horror, the baby will start crying. If the mum's like, "Oh, you're okay," and picks them up, sort of thing, often they're okay. And we're really influenced by the opinions and behaviors of other people, and that's normal. But there are times when it's a problem, when you're like, I don't feel like I'm agreeing with this consensus opinion, this majority opinion. It can be a very, very difficult thing, as you're saying, Mike.
Yeah, it's the tough times. So I got my stuff going on. It's the tough times that test us. And then how do you respond to those tests? Like for me, and personally, this is just me being very open and vulnerable. I feel that when things occur now that are negative, that it's not a punishment. And I've spoken about that before, where I lived in a way as like I was the victim. I was being punished because of X, Y, and Z. And I did live through that phase for a little bit. And honestly, when I write about it, and I really been like, why was I like that? Why did I feel like that was the right way? It was because I was being influenced by certain people I had in my life, like, oh, that is not your fault. It's all the other person's fault, and you deserve it. And it's like, yeah, they just beat you down because, whatever reason. And it was this negative, it was just pointing the finger, no accountability. And you just think that like you're perfect and you're always the hero, and that everyone's out to get you, everyone's out to attack you. And you're just this lone wolf, that's like, I know all the right answers, or these people. And it was the influence. It was going along with the majority and believing that like, well, yeah, I received this bad occurrence, and now I have permission to just be toxic, that I can be an asshole, that I can, do something negative back, just to show that like,
Yeah.
and over time, man, that none of that made me better. That made me an ugly person. And when I look at
Yeah.
myself in the mirror, I'm like, man, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to feel these feelings. I don't want to be angry all the time. I don't want to be pissed off. I don't want to be, cutting off vital relationships or friendships by doing this, like, man, I want to be a good person. And through my time, when, I'm very open about, I stopped looking so much to people all the time. And I read more about what God made me to be, who God wants me to be as a man, as a friend, as a mentor, as a warrior, as a leader. I get my guidance from that. But I still listen to people like you and some of my other mentors and everything, because you guys are along the same journey, and you're very open and vulnerable to those messages and ways of life. And it's always good to have somebody along the journey that's willing to fight. I recently heard a quote that was talking about in the Bible, and it says, when you pick a friend or a relationship, what is one thing that you would say about them, and how you know that you'd want to be with them? And literally, this is from the Bible. It says, would you go to war with them? And it's not just, like in the Bible, they talk about, fighting and that sort of stuff, but like, go to war in all aspects of life. And it also takes a teammate. Like it takes two to fight. It can't just be one person always standing in front of the other, with the other one just in your wake, just following along, not putting in the effort, not fighting so hard, but they're berating you to, hey, you need to do better. You need to lead better. You need to keep doing all the work, or you need to do this. And when they're just behind you, going, that's not going to work. But those type of reflections and values and characters that are around you, that influence you in a positive way, man, I'm proud to be part of what I believe is the minority, which I think is getting smaller these days, because it seems like, at least in the West, the majority is social media. The majority is in the news. The majority is in government now. And it's like pushed. If you're not part of this, then you're wrong. You're not accepted. You're weird. Something's wrong with you. And then you're kind of like pushed away. And it's like, all I wanted to do was help you. All I wanted to do was be a good person for you. All I wanted to do was think bigger than myself, outside of myself, and be selfless.
Yes.
And a lot of that is just frowned on now, man. And I see people struggle with it all the time. I've struggled with it. I walk away sometimes almost in tears, because I'm like, why doesn't this person, or why doesn't this group see me for what I want to bring and offer? That it's not malicious. Like, I'm not there to harm you. I'm here for the right reasons. And they're not just my reasons. Like, for me, it's like where I get my guidance. It's God's reasons, what he created me, how he created me, what my purpose is, understanding my purpose, what gifts and talents he gave me to offer other people, because ultimately you should be sharing your talents and passions with other people, to inspire, to heal, to share happiness, all these different things. Man, yeah, it can be confusing.
Because we're in this situation where we're talking here about the times when you find yourself, there's a majority viewpoint on something, and your viewpoint or your opinion or your belief is different to that. And it's when really is sort of what I'm boiling this down to is when should you be trusting yourself and when should you be taking in those external inputs? When should you be listening to the majority and when should you be listening to yourself? And it can be very, very difficult to do this. We've all been in these situations because there's, a famous poem by Rudyard Kipling, If. And my dad gave it to us three boys to learn. It was must have only been a few months before he died. Anyway, we all had to memorize it as kids. And it opens with, if you can trust yourself when if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. That's the opening two lines. And there's really a lot in that second line of, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. Because you can easily fall on either side of this. It's like a knife edge in these difficult times when there's a quandary, when there's a moral dilemma or there's something you're really stuck on. If there was an easy path, it was an easy answer, you would have taken it. If it was obvious what to do, you would have done it and you would have just continued on. You wouldn't be stewing over it. And when you're in those situations, you do have to be very careful that you're not showing groupthink and acting like a sheep in the herd and just going along with everyone because that's what everyone's doing. The whole, jumping off a bridge because your mates jumped off a bridge.
Oh.
But you also have to really take into account, there's plenty of times when, when we are the idiot, when we're the ones with a pig-headed idea or a stupid idea, or we haven't taken in information that others have taken in. And it takes real discernment to know which side are we on here. And so there's really, I think at the heart of these dilemmas around following the majority versus following yourself is being able to balance and take in inputs and have an open mind and open heart to think maybe the majority is right, maybe I'm right. What is it that I'm basing my decision on? Why is that different than the majority? Why are they making their decision this way? Because there's going to be, hands up, there's plenty of times when I've been wrong, and there'll be plenty of times in the future when I'll be wrong. But there are some times when that you've figured out something that's, you've seen something, you've got an insight that others don't have. And you need to follow yourself, your values in those situations. And the core of this question is, for me, like, how do you know? How do you know which one you're in? You know what I mean? Like that's the freaking $1 million question that we're all gonna have at different times, Mike.
Two quotes come to mind. That's exactly what these quotes are about, Mel, and you nailed it perfectly. One is by Mark Twain, and he says, when you find yourself in the side of majority, it's time to pause and reflect. Exactly what you said. You have to have self-awareness and not just
say that quote again. Can you say that quote again?
Sure,
that was unreal.
When you find yourself in the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect.
Wow.
That couldn't be more true. I think after a while, whether you're at work, in a relationship, doing whatever, you get to that point where it's kind of stagnant, you're kind of floating, you're going along, checking off the boxes, so to speak. And so it's like, well, we're together, so we have to go and do these things, and this is just what we do, or whatever. It's definitely, you have to make time to stop and be like, where are we at? What are we doing? Are we on the right path? What are we bouncing our, where are we getting our guidance from? What are we bouncing our values and our actions off of, and that's huge because, again, I have an interesting example that was brought to my attention this week, which I'll bring up here in a minute. But when we have to have self-awareness, when we have to take that step back and pause and reflect, what are we comparing ourselves to? Are we comparing ourselves to the majority or to the minority? And who's leading each group? What values does each group have? What characteristics does each group have? What is their purpose? What is their intent? What is their goals? And also too, you got to look at the people that are in each group. Are they, what actions are they taking? What attitudes do they have? Do they align with who you really want to be when you envision yourself as like a good, healthy person? You got to like take a look at all those, man. Another quote that I wrote down was from JFK, and he says, sometimes the majority can mean that all the fools are on the same side.
Oh,
how about that one?
That's
right?
a good one. Yeah, that's a good one, man.
Yeah.
Say it again.
Sometimes the majority can mean that all the fools are on the same side.
Man, how true is that?
It's true, right? And I think about that in a lot of ways. In this example that I'm about to share, I didn't know this existed, but I saw it and I was kind of like, man, that looks terrible. So on social media, there's a group site with some of the people listening. You may have heard of this. If not, I encourage you not to even bother with it. But it's called "Are We Dating the Same Person?" And it's like a social group. Are we dating the same guy? Are we dating the same girl? And it's for like regions or areas and stuff. Basically, what happens is people that are trying to date someone, or they just broke up with someone, they put your picture and your whole relationship and what happened, according to them, in public for people that you don't even know, to just either give you dating advice or berate you, or berate this person about this is a terrible person and whatever. And these random people that you don't even know.
Oh my God.
And you can actually respond as like anonymous, so nobody knows who you are. How toxic is that?
Man, I can't believe that this is a real thing.
This is a real thing. I'm going to take my personal life, something that was so close to me and invested within my spirit, my heart, my family, whatever it is, and I'm going to throw it to the wolves. And who are the people that are in there? A lot of people that are heartbroken, miserable. They haven't dealt through their trauma, through their situation, whatever. And they're throwing out any type of coping mechanism with no alignment, except a lot of them that I read was temporary fulfillment and solutions. Hey, go grab some wine and sit at home and just drink it away. And it was just all these different things. Anything I read through there was nothing. There was nothing about, well, that's only your side of the story. What was your part in the relationship? What did you contribute to this? Was this person really that bad of a person? Did they really do something? Was it that you guys just didn't match up on things and you're hurt because they denied you? There was no honesty. There was no accountability. There was nothing in there. But the majority in that room, like all these comments that I read, I was like, these people are all going to ruin each other. Like, there's no positive influence here whatsoever. Now, let me redact that. I will say the one thing I did see in there is there's some people in there that aren't good people, and they post them and they're like, this person is abusive and he hits people, or does
Right.
this, or has an alcohol problem, or hey, I know they're a drug addict and they need help, or there's kids involved. I can understand that, but most of it, the majority of it, was this nitpicking, immature conversations and comments, and it was like, dude, I don't even want to be part of that. Like, that's the majority in here. There was nothing healthy going to come from this, but being more toxic, judgmental. You're literally going to account for everybody not being perfect or good enough for a relationship. And dude, it was just like, I don't ever want to look at this again.
Yeah.
Like, it was so bad. And it made me feel like uneasy just being and reading it. I was like, dude, I don't know, I want to be a part of this. So I don't know if anybody's heard of that out there. But I think that's a great example. Like, is that where you're going to get your guidance from the majority, and the people who haven't done the work, who don't care to do the work, who are struggling so much that they haven't found their own answers yet, but they're willing to give advice? I'm not saying I'm perfect. I am not. But I do believe that where I do look for guidance is not in a place like that.
Yeah.
It's in the Bible, it's by trained professionals, psychologists, counselors, therapists, people who are on the same journey that want to be good in the definitions of true, wholesome, good-hearted people, of caring, selflessness, values, those sort of things, not tearing people down.
Because when you're stuck in a dilemma, when you're stuck in a quandary, when you're stuck in a situation when you really are feeling torn and you're not sure which way you should be acting, you do have to be very careful as to where you go for advice. And when people have got no skin in the game, when they're just an anonymous stranger, it costs them nothing. They can give you terrible advice and walk away. Like there's one person who's going to be living with the consequences down the road. And so for me, you're really in a situation where you're wanting to like get a weighting, like a reliability weighting on yourself versus the majority in a situation. You've got maybe you've got a group of like your family are like, we think that this action should be taken, and you're feeling the opposite. And I feel like trying to come up with like a reliability rating for yourself versus the group, whatever the group is, the majority versus yourself, that you need to be looking at the people, including yourself, objectively and being like, what is their track record like? Like, are we talking here, like you just said, Mike, like a professional counselor who's got a lot of training, a pastor, a military padre gone to for advice, or a trusted friend who's walked a path similar to the one that you're talking to and has come through it with their integrity intact? Or are you, watching the football with a mate, having a few beers, and, this guy's got a wreckage of many relationships in his rearview mirror and many failed careers and stuff, and you're like, where am I getting my advice from? So you need to be able to have a framework or a lens view through which you're going to view the two different opinions, so that you can put like a reliability on them. And for me, when you're stuck in these situations, you have to reflect on what your own core values and principles are. And if you're not clear on those, you're always going to find areas where you get stuck in the quicksand, right? Like you're not going to have something that's long-term and deep that's going to be able to guide you through the hard times we're always going to have. So reflect on your core values and principles. Get clear what your intuition is. And it's not going to be necessarily the first urge, You might be yourself subject to one of these passing fancies or something that's not, it's not in your long-term interest. It might be, your shadow encouraging you to do something stupid, to chase after a shitty career option, or to pursue a relationship or something like that. Could be occurring for you as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you've reflected on your core values and principles, get your own intuition clear. Like, what's your inner voice? And you have to think about the consequences are going to be lived by you. Like, what is the trajectory that is going to flow from this decision? And then you're able to do the same thing for the other people. You're able to think on their core values and principles. What are their values? What are their insights? Because it could be that there's an expert opinion that you've taken here. You've gone to someone who really knows what they're talking about in this, and maybe they see things that you don't see. They have more experience. There's someone who's 10, 15, 20 years down the road past you, and they've seen these things come up in their own lives. And therefore, you might be able to weight their opinion differently. And you just got to remember that the consequences of whatever this judgment is, there's two paths that you're thinking about, is going to be lived by you. And you're going to be the one, in 5 years, 10 years, walking further down that journey from this decision point. And you're only going to be stuck with these on the big ones. So, and closing this off, this loop, like, maintain your integrity. Like, take that time to question yourself. Take that time to question your own decisions. Are you being pushed by an impulse that's not really from a place of value and principle? and really just take that moment of questioning yourself the same way you question someone else's opinion that you're not sure about. And I think you're going to be in a pretty good position then to be able to balance yourself. Like, what is it we're talking about here? Why am I wanting to do pathway A, and my family or my coworkers or all my friends want me to do pathway B? And you might be able to have a better ability to discern which one of these two pathways is the right way, Mike.
Just very well said. As you're talking, I'm just sitting here reflecting on myself. How many times in my whole life have people told me that I can't do something, I shouldn't do something, you shouldn't be this way because this or that, or this person did this to you. So, why aren't you mad? Or, what? And did I listen to them sometimes? I did, but I can look at other things, big and small, where I was like, no, that's not for me. And I know, like my career, for one, man, like I was 11 years old when I figured out I wanted to do this job for my first career. I was the gray man, and I'm not this guy sitting here being like, I was the high school quarterback and I was like, oh, I wasn't popular. It's like, no, I was literally like a gray man. We didn't have any money. I didn't have a car. I ran to school, came back. I wore like regular standard clothes. I'd rewear the same stuff all the time. I was the gray man. I was super skinny. Okay. Like seriously, I was super skinny. I was anemic as a child. Like just to give you an idea. And everybody would look at me and be like, yeah, you're not going to do that. You can't do that. And it was like, why would you say that to me? Like, what do you want to do when you're older? Oh, well, I want to do this. Well, I think you can do that. Why can't you? The only person going to stop you is you. And it always sucked to be like put down. And then you kind of get this feeling from the majority of, well, you do it so you can show them. You'll show them one day, right? You got to fight back, and you got to be this spiteful person and be like, ha, I got you. I proved to you I could do it, whatever. And I did have those opportunities after I made it through. I went back and saw some of those people throughout interactions and different things. And my desire was not there to stick it to them. My desire was, I wish you would have been part of this instead of against me, because I am part of something special. And they knew it, and they looked at me, and I kind of wondered. I was like, why weren't you in that mindset? And it was because they thought they couldn't do it. And they kind of projected it as like, they didn't want to see you get ahead. They don't want to see you go off and be better, because they felt that they were in some way, shape, or form less. So it was easier to go with the other people who were just kind of floating than going through some of the adversity required to achieve a very hard goal. And I understood that. I learned, but that took me some time to reflect, to stop and reflect, and had great mentors and advice from reliable, quality sources to practice that in those moments. And it became clear of like, man, this isn't even about me.
Yeah.
This is about what's going on in your mind and your heart and your circle and your relationship and your adversity. Like, I'm not a bad person. Like, I'm excluded from this, but I still want to help you.
In other people's defense, there are a lot of people who say, who can talk a big game. And that's pretty common, especially when you talk about teenage kids, who don't necessarily have any runs on the board. And so it can be hard for people to understand at that age that there's someone in the midst who's going to go off and have a career like someone like you, Mike. That's a pretty extraordinary outcome, but you knew at that time how strong your commitment was, and you knew what you were doing in the background. And you, I have no doubt, had these moments of what we're just talking about here, of reflecting on your core values and listening to your intuition, your inner voice, thinking about the consequences, who's going to live with the outcome. I think you, if I'm not wrong, you did go and get some expert opinion from people who'd done had had careers in SF, and you knew what was going on inside in the background in a way that no one else is ever going to be able to have access to, and for you to then have your career unfold the way it has, and then it's totally congruent that when you would see these people again, you'd never want to be like, you're not there to have a gotcha. Your life has not been lived so that you can gotcha your old schoolmates 15 or 20 years later. You know what I mean? Like that's not who you are. That's not what any of us are doing these things for. Like there's a pathway that you've taken in that moment of you thinking about that. I've got a majority opinion and I'm an outlier. And I have no doubt you had thoughts and were probably torn at different times, and you pursued. At that time, you went through all these things that we're talking about, and you came out with, no, I'm going to carry on with this path. I'm going to do this thing that's difficult, and I'm going to continue to do it. I'm going to have self-belief and push myself. And it totally aligns with that the person on the other end of that, who's gone off and had this extraordinary part of their life unfold, you're not living from, I'm doing this to get back at someone, or you're not living from negativity, anger, or self-justification, because the person who's doing that has not done this. The person they're not going to have taken these years of sustained action to achieve something. That's just not, those two things are not, you can't be both at the same time. You're on the opposite end of a spectrum. Knowing who you are, knowing what you stand for, knowing what you believe is the thing that's important for you. Like you said that at the top of the show, and you've then lived, you've had a moment, you've thought about it, and you've carried on, and you're the one who had the skin in the game. This is your life we're talking about here, and you knew that these things were true for you in your mind. You knew what was in the background. You knew your family situation with your brother and your dad and everything else, and you knew that this was a real thing. And it's an amazing thing to talk to you and listen to you when you're talking from, I can't remember how many years it is now for you. It's a lot. I think it's 15 or 16 years.
Yeah, almost
down
17.
that pathway.
Almost 17.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. It's great. And it's totally unsurprising that there would be no malice or negativity associated with that, because you couldn't have done the things you've done if you were that person.
No. Living again, just to end that part of it, if you're doing things to be spiteful of another person and then they either see it or maybe they never will, how long is that really going to last? It's like, I knew who you were anyway. Why was I bending my whole life and pathway just to get to that moment to look at this person and go, told you so? You know how long that's going to last? 10, 20 seconds, maybe. If you hurt the person's feelings, if they walk away, what are they really going to feel? Like, has that ever been done to you? You're going to be like, wow, okay, that sucks, but I guess they did it. All right, well, I'm going to continue on with my life and walk away. How much wasted time and energy and thoughts did you just give? It's just not worth it. And I say that now because I've learned the lessons on why not to do that. And I don't want to do that. But the other thing I'll say, when you're talking about majority, minority, is I think you can keep yourself awareness when you're consistent, and other people can see that you're consistent. That, is a simple example. You're having a work group. There's 6 people in there. A question or a topic comes up and it's like, what do you think? And you keep your hand down, and then you watch 4 other people raise their hand and they're like, oh yeah, okay, well, that's the majority, so I'm going to jump in and agree with them. But in your mind, you're like, I kind of have a difference of opinion, but I don't want to disagree because obviously everybody else, and maybe that's right.
This is an excellent point, Mike. Like when you're in one of these dilemma moments where you're not sure which way to go, and you have been consistent in the past, you have been trying to apply values and principles as a framework for your decision making, and here you are in a situation where you're really not sure. I've got these 2 things, and one of them feels like it's aligning with your previous values and principles, and you've been consistent over time. that's a time I think when you can really put in a lot more increased reliability on your decision. You can really be like, I'm really not sure right now, but this type of decision in the past has worked out for me. This type of decision in the past has been based on these values and principles. And although I feel a bit confused at the moment and I'm feeling a lot of peer pressure or whatever, I know I can lean on this consistency I've had in the past and I should back myself. Like, I feel like that's an excellent point there about having consistency over time where you've been doing something to values and principles and another one of those has come up. That's the time for you to go, right, I know I should trust my gut intuition. Different than one where it's not been like that, or you perhaps have not really been consistent. You've been wishy-washy. You're not giving yourself a framework you can lean on, you know, where you're looking around the room, like you're saying, Mike, and being like, well, what's everyone else think here? I'll put my hand up when they all put their hand up. You don't have that same bedrock to be able to build that self-trust over time.
Yeah. And it's very clear, like, who am I and what do I want in my life? You know, like who do I, when I envision myself, like, who am I really when I see this beautiful version of myself and being there, you know, like I have this vision I've shared all the time is like, I want to be a good, healthy man. I want to have a good man to a woman. I want to be a great father figure where I'm not out doing destructive actions, where I'm not being selfish. I'm not out drinking my face off or doing unhealthy habits, you know, to the best of my ability. Like, I don't want to be like that. I want to be a good, consistent person. And I'll make changes. I'm not saying that you can't make small changes as life goes on, because life changes, situations change, your body changes, friends change, work changes. You know, you do have to evolve. But when it comes to the big stuff, the basics is like, I'm not doing that. You know, one of the big things that popped in my head growing up is, you know, especially as a kid, man, there's a lot of influence. All my friends and a lot of friends started like smoking and doing drugs and like this, that, whatever. And they're always just like, hey man, you want to come to the party? I'm like, no, I don't want to. Or, hey man, you want a cigarette? Hey, you got a lighter? Hey man, you want to smoke? You want to do this? And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, that is 100% no. And I'll tell you what my reason was, is because I watched my father at 18 years old die from lung cancer because he smoked his whole life. And when you have to carry your father to the bathroom at 18 years old because he's too weak to walk, and you got to put him on the bathroom toilet, it changes your perspective. And it's like, I want nothing to do with that. And I am not bending on anything, because that means so much to me. That'll never be me. I do not want to live that life. So it is a hard no. And if you have to walk away from me, it was nice knowing you, you know, good luck to you. And that's what I mean. Like, I know I'm the minority in that circle, but I'm not bending, because I know I can see the future of if I do this versus if I don't do this. And it's very definitive, and it makes it easy on me. And honestly, it makes me feel good when I walk away. It's like, I didn't give that up. I didn't bend on what I believe. I didn't bend on my values. You know, like I value life, man. I value fresh air. I really do. Like, everybody's like, hey, you want this? You want this? I'm like, no, dude, I'm a huge fan of clean air. Like, you know,
and that consistency that you're talking about, Mike, is such a great point. Like, it's a value that you've held and you've consistently taken a difficult action. You know, you resisted peer pressure or the group think. It gives you strength to do it again the next time. And it also can give you that satisfaction of, no, I know in this area that I'm correct for me. And you're not necessarily judging other people, but you're like, you know, for you and the path that you've walked, none of those other people had those experiences like you have just shared with us with your dad when he was unwell. And you're able to then consistently apply that when that situation arises. That really gives you strength to keep carrying on with those values.
Yeah.
I had a thought that we could perhaps cover the times when it's wise to seek information, or when it's wise to go out and be like, I'm not, you know, the counter time when perhaps you are not right. I thought we could perhaps just cover off on situations where it is good to listen to others, where it is good to take in those external inputs, because there's plenty of times in life when we come into situations that are different than what you said. You're like, no, I know in this situation, someone's offering me a cigarette, I know 100%. what's right for me, and I'm not going to do it. But we're talking about these other grey situations that we come across in life all the time, and we're going to keep coming across that we've not experienced before, and we're not sure what to do, and we've got our own feeling, and then there's other people, and we're not aligned, but we're not in one of these situations that we know the answer to. So I thought we could talk about perhaps some of these ones that are like maybe a more complex dilemma situation, that the right course of action isn't clear. And this is one of the situations where I reckon you want to be then looking for external input. You want to look for some of those trusted mentors, trusted friends, expert opinions like you were alluding to earlier, Mike.
Ooh.
So maybe we could just cover off quickly on like a couple of times where we're like, or areas where we think it is worthwhile getting that counterpoint. What's the opposite, or what's the other people think? And I think that some of these complex dilemmas can be the times where it's worthwhile going out to experts, going out to our friend cohort.
Yeah. What would you, I mean, this is just us talking right now. What would you define as complex?
Well, I think that the more experience I get, the more, I've lived my years, like you with the cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the time you've had your principles and values, you try to apply them. When you're getting a situation that's different, it doesn't fit neatly into something, you're not sure, it's murky. Like some of the stuff for me around parenting or looking forward about what should I do for leaving Saudi, or my next step, where should I go? What should I do with my kids? Schooling, where should we live? Finances, stuff like that. For me, they appear as like complicated, complex situations. And I might have an initial, like, I want to do this, but it's in these situations, it's not clear. I wouldn't be stewing on it. If it was clear, I already know. A is the answer, and I'd just do it, and I wouldn't ever stew on it. And so for me, these are times when, specifically this, like when to leave Saudi, when to make a next career move, when to move family, what to do with children's education, and so on. I'm in the middle of this right now, actually. Like, this is something Mike and I talk a lot about offline. I've got like a financial advisor that I talk to, and he runs modeling. So I'm not making my guesses based on a pilot's knowledge. I've got a guy who does this for a career, and he is able to give forecasts and show me different outcomes and how things might look. So I'm not making decisions blind. We engage with educators and people who are experts with kids, especially situations like my daughter being vision impaired and special needs kid with a lot of love of music and stuff, to be like, what options are there out there? What would life be like if we were back in Melbourne, in Australia, living there, versus what we're doing here? And so this is what comes up to me when you say, what's a complex dilemma for you right now, Melon? It's this. It's the whole, what do I do looking forward with family and finances, career, living in different places in the world. And there's never because you can't get all of it at once. You can't be like, oh, well, I'll just do the one where I get the great career, the great finances, the family are all together, the kids are getting all their solutions met, because that's not a dilemma. That's an easy, the most obvious answer in the world. And so, because it's a compromise, like all of us, when we look forward in life, these are the times for me when it's worth engaging with experts, and it's worth talking to trusted friends, people like you, Mike, and other people that I've been fortunate enough to have come into my life, and I've held on to the really special people. So I know I've got a really great circle of friends to talk through stuff like this with, people whose opinions I trust. So I'm not talking about a internet website with anonymous people giving me a relationship advice. I'm talking about people who I know love me and who want the best for me in my life, who are able to perhaps give me a viewpoint I don't have. They can see something in the situation that I can't see because of their expertise or their experience.
Okay.
Maybe I've got a blind spot. They'll be like, hey, have you thought about this? And it's like, oh, boom, I didn't even consider that.
All right. Thank you for explaining it. I understand now. Honestly, and this is always my first stop usually, is I think about it. I write it down to get okay, what is the issue? What's the problem? Whatever. And I write it down because my brain gets cluttered. Like, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes there's just so much going on in there. I'm just like, I need to write it down and look at it. And then honestly, I usually call you or talk to Cheza or somebody that I know that, like you said, truly loves and cares for me, that is also putting in the work and really trying to live a good, solid, healthy life with a relationship, of family, work stuff. And I bounce it off of you guys first, you know, like I write my thoughts down. You guys are like my first filter, right? And I go off that because you guys have had life experience, and, you know, I know what journey you're on, and you're on the same path, a lot of the same ideas, values, all that stuff. But I don't always just stop there, and it's nothing against them. I'm learning about this now. I'm 35 and I'm learning about this now. I honestly reference the Bible because to me, this sounds crazy maybe to some people, but this is just me talking. I'm being honest. It's almost like a playbook. And if there's something that you're experiencing for the first time in your life, it has happened for thousands of years, and it is written in that book. I mean, it is not just like, oh, you know, God's on the cross and this, that, he died for your sins, whatever. It talks about war. It talks about failure. It talks about relationships. It talks about friendships, betrayal, literally everything. There is something written and cross-referenced throughout the entire thing about life and experiences and what you go through. And I've been reading on it. I've been struggling myself. You know, here I am as a leader, you know, when I'm my body's broken and I'm struggling with thoughts of like letting things go and like letting them go, and they're capable of leading and being without me. Relationship struggles, you know, like, God, why doesn't this person want me? Like, why am I so bad? What did I do wrong? How could I be better? You know, and it's just that struggling thing. It's like, but maintaining, man, I've referenced it. So like, there is that layer is like, man, my own self, I know I'm doing the work and I need to remember what I've learned and apply the lessons. So like, that's the first one. The second one, I bounce it off Melon, Cheza, people I really trust that are on the same journey. And then 3, I'll go a layer deeper just to confirm and be like, does this all align? Or is there one crazy dogleg 90-degree turn somewhere in those 3 things that's just completely off? And if it's me, then it's me. I will admit it. I'm like, hey, man, the Bible said it's right. Melon said it's right. And I'm completely 180 on it. And we're doing that self-reflection. Man, did I screw it up? That was my fault. And admit it and learn from it and let the people know. Like, I let Melon know, dude, I totally did that. I messed it up. You know, that's okay. But he expects that as well. That's why he's like a brother to me. He expects me to call my own bullshit. He expects me to stand up and admit when I failed, when I'm wrong, when being part of the minority was the wrong choice because of selfishness, because of my pride, my ego, you know, you didn't hurt me, I'm good, like F this and blah, blah, blah. It's just like being this angry, spiteful person that he knows I'm not. And he'll look at me and be like, Mike, you're being a cheerleader from the University of North Texas.
just so everyone knows, the shoe is on the other foot as well. We're just highlighting with a bit of humor that Mike comes to me, but also that there's a flow that goes back and forth between the two of us. Clearly, I really love that you're talking there about ethical frameworks that have been passed down for generations. People would not tell their children and grandchildren ethical stories and collect these stories and write them down into books of wisdom if they had not found some really deep insight into humanity. And these books of wisdom are available to us. And I think that that's a great place to go when you're not sure, when you're like, there's a group of people who are saying A and I'm thinking B, to be able to find these books of wisdom that have been passed down. And if you find a book that's been passed down for thousands of years, in the case of the Bible, people are not doing it because they're told to do it. They're doing it because they've found things in there that are true. Like a grandparent will not give advice to a grandchild that they don't think is true. Like they love them, and there's reason that these things are passed down. And that's like an extra layer. I really like the way Mike's talked about that, being able to access this extra layer, like an extra layer of ethics and values and principles that you can use to maybe update your value system, your principles, and help you find the right way. Because I think that ultimately at the end of this, we've got this, the group or the majority or the consensus or the peer pressure in you. And like Mike was saying, you could be blinded by jealousy or pride or ego, or all those negative things could be influencing you, or you could be missing information. You just might be, you think this is situation A and it's not. Like you've missed some input that other people have seen. And I think what you want to be able to do is balancing these majority versus the individual to find the middle path where you've been able to weight credibility, the opinions on either side. You've been able to think about your intuition, your inner voice. You've been able to think about your values and get yourself in a place of integrity and leaning on your consistency in the past to find that middle path where you're able to, like Kipling said in his poem, you're able to trust yourself in all men day, but make allowance for their doubting too. And when you're doing it like that consistently over time, I think that there's real opportunity for self-improvement in these dilemmas. That these difficult situations arise, and you can view them as an opportunity for personal growth. You can view them as an opportunity to expand your framework, your ethical framework, you expand your values and principles. You've got an opportunity to add, to the decision-making matrix that you've got. And, these challenges that we're all going to have in our future, hopefully, are another opportunity for you to develop that moral consistency over time, where you build that self-reliability, you build that foundation of decision-making that has been in your own interests. And the times when you make a mess of it, like there's opportunity there too, right? To really look at it and think and not be angry with other people and blame other people, but to really be like, what situation was I in when I was making that decision? How did I make a flawed decision? Was it ego? Was it selfishness on my side, or did I drop my values and did I go with the peer group that I never should have done? And you can take that as an opportunity to grow as well. So I think finding the middle path and treating these dilemmas as opportunities for growth, hopefully you're able to have consistent upward trajectory. But even when you've had a breakdown, to be able to look at it later, you might still be able to find something really positive out of it. I was thinking, did you have any other final thoughts to leave people with, Mike? Did you have anything to add on that topic there, the middle path and opportunities for personal growth through these dilemmas?
No, I don't have anything else to really add, man. Honestly, I really enjoyed talking about this because, I mean, if I'm being honest, I had a really nice morning, and just thinking about where I'm at and kind of what's going on right now versus where I am mentally, emotionally, like I feel happy. Like I don't know, man, it just feels good. And because I'm looking at the right things. I'm feeling the right things. I'm bouncing them off the right things. And honestly, I want that for other people. If you're listening to this, hopefully you're kind of reflecting in your car on the way to work, on the way home, or you're sitting at home, or like wherever you're at, going for a run or at the gym. And you've been sitting there thinking about this stuff. Like this applies to all of us. Like we're all in this struggle. We're always in the minority or in the majority. And it's like, we could be the minority in one area and then the majority in a complete other one. And knowing where you're at and what you're doing, and there's no like right or wrong answer. It's not like, well, you have to be in the minority in everything and fight the man all the time. Or you have to love everybody and go with what everybody else says. Everybody's different, and it fluctuates, sometimes too. And it's just this never ending evolution and journey that we're all on. But that stopping and reflecting is just going to let you know where you're at and what you're doing and what you stand for. And, knowing what's pushing back against you. How you like that? I almost put the title in there, Pushing Back Chaos, but, but yeah, it's something we all need to stop and take a look at and remember and look at who you want to be in the end of it. where do you see yourself tomorrow? Where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years? Is what you're doing right now or agreeing to or not agreeing to, is that going to put you one step forward or one step back? You know, yeah, take notes on it. It's good.
Love it. Well, everyone, thanks. We always really appreciate you guys stopping and spending your time with us. We know how valuable it is. We get a lot out of the conversations ourselves, and we just really hope that they're making a difference out there for you. If they are, please share them out into your community, subscribe to the podcast. Just FYI, this is episode 60 of Pushing Back Chaos, plus 90 of Not Your Average Operator. So this is actually our 150th episode.
Jeez.
150. Yeah. 150 crazy conversations, really, of like reasonably deep topics. And I got to say that I just get so much momentum in my life from having these talks. I really thank all you out there listeners for the opportunity. It's made a big difference in my life, and sharing this out as widely as possible. We're never looking to make a dollar from it. We're just hoping to make a difference. So please, reviews and shares and subscribes. Pass it on, and please let us know if there's topics that are near and dear to your heart you'd like us to touch on. But majority view versus the self. Great chat this evening, and we'll leave you there. Until next week, thank you very much. Take care.